Inspirational Business Women show, where today I'll be speaking with my special guest, Odille Remmert, and we're going to be discussing empowerment breakthrough to reprogram your subconscious GPS. Hi everyone, I am Virginia Parsons, the host of the Inspirational Business Women show, and I want to thank you for being here with us today. We have a great program coming up. And before we get started, I would really love it if you could help spread the word, because you're going to have some powerful, valuable information from Odille today. And I want to make sure that everyone who could benefit by this information has an opportunity to see it. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and play the preview trailer. And while you're watching that, you have a couple buttons you can push to help get the word out about Odille's amazing information. So I'll play the preview and we'll be getting started right after that. So you can see we've got some powerhouse information coming up for you and anyone you know who sometimes struggles with what you think you want to do, and yet there's something under the surface seems to interfere with you feeling fully empowered and getting the results that you want. Well, Odille is here today to help us breakthrough, and I can't wait to share her with you. But first, I need to let you know that today's show is sponsored by hangout-marketing.com, where you can receive a complimentary live stream marketing assessment. Now, if you're not using live stream in your business, what are you waiting for? It is the most powerful and effective way to build the know, trust, and like factor. Well, all you need to do to take advantage of this assessment is to text pound success to 775-800-4179. Take the assessment, which will only take you a couple of minutes, and you might qualify for a complimentary shine strategy session with me, where we will really sit down, look at your business, and help you determine the very best, most strategic ways for you to use live stream in your business. So go ahead and take advantage of that. And if you're out of the country, you can go to hangout-marketing.com as well. So I hope you're going to take advantage of that, and I'm looking forward to talking to you about it after you take the assessment. All right, so let's get you introduced to Odille today. Now, as I said, we're going to be talking about empowerment breakthrough to reprogram your subconscious GPS. And Odille is the co-founder of the Remmert Method. She's an international mindset coach, and she's been studying and practicing these techniques and strategies for many years. As a matter of fact, she used them to transform her own life. And I'm going to let her tell you about her story. But before we get started, remember those 3 areas we're going to be focusing on today are gaining control over your brain-body chemistry, and they do relate and they overlap. And so Odille's going to help with that. And then how to change your subconscious GPS. Did you know that you actually do have a pre-written GPS already programmed in your subconscious? If it's working, great. But if it's not getting where you want to go, It's time to reprogram it. And finally, breaking through challenges. Challenges that come up each and every day for each and every one of us so that you can stay on course with your new GPS coordinates. So, Odille, come on in and say hi to our audience, won't you?
Hello, Virginia. Hello, everyone. I'm so excited to be here. I'm so excited to be sharing this incredibly powerful information with you all.
I know it is because I already have a background as a clinical hypnotherapist and I understand these principles, and yet you have taken it to a level that I'm excited to hear more about because you've put together your own, what you call your own Remmert system around making these changes. So I'm super excited to talk to you about it and throw questions out at you and also hear from everyone in the audience because you guys, we want to hear from you, whether or not you're with us live or in replay. Put your comments down, put your questions down. We also want to hear if you hear something that is what I call a pack your bag moment, put it down. Let us know that. Or a pound gem saying, that is a gem I'm going to make sure I pay attention to. We do want to hear from you. So let's start, Odille, with the background that you have, because I feel that our backgrounds, our stories are so fundamental to our life's path and what eventually becomes our life work, like you have. So what would you like to share with us about that got you maybe from what I call a defining moment into what you're doing today to change other people's lives? So go ahead.
Absolutely. Thank you, Virginia. Well, toward the end of 2015, I was divorced, renting a room in a shared house in England, cleaning other people's houses and unable to pay my bills. I was suicidal and I'd been depressed for a long time. I'd had a lifetime of struggle, emotional, physical, and financial struggle. And so I had kind of reached rock bottom. And a few months later, not only was I able to pay my bills, but I was also traveling internationally, and even paying for my son and my sister to join me on one of my trips to Greece. And what had shifted there was the GPS coordinates, which I'm going to share with you today. Because it's like you're driving, you want to drive to Chicago and let's say you're in Chicago and you want to drive to LA. If your GPS coordinates are set to Chicago, it's going to keep turning you around and sending you back to there instead of to LA. And my GPS coordinates were set to struggle and drama. And it was when I changed them that my life changed completely. So I am now living in America, where I'd always wanted to be, married to the love of my life. I do what I love for a living, and I now own the rental properties I used to clean back in 2015.
I love it. That is a great turnaround. That is like, yeah, I'm getting out of Chicago, although I'm from the Chicago area originally. I love that town. Yeah. But you're right. It's if your GPS coordinates are set to a place you're just familiar with, you've grown up with, you tend to stay there, don't you? You don't expand even beyond your city limits.
Yep.
All right. Well, let's talk. Let me get this scene over. Let's talk for a moment about what this means, about this mind-body connection, the neural connections that take place that affect us without our even knowing it. I call that some of the autonomic nervous system response patterns that have got to be reprogrammed. So let's let people know about that.
All right, wonderful. And, these are my favorite topics, so I'm happy to help. Right, so the first part that I wanted to share is, and this, to me, this should be general knowledge because this is so powerful once you realize what's going on. Whenever we feel a negative emotion, any negative emotion, so from fear and anxiety to worry to anger, frustration, loneliness, hopelessness, whatever those negative emotions are, the brain and body go into the same fight, freeze, flight state they do when we're faced with a physical threat. So stress chemicals are pumped into our system, the same stress chemicals that would be pumped into our system if we were faced with a bear. And the reason that's so important is those stress chemicals, so adrenaline, cortisol, they have very specific physiological effects, including they cause blood to be redirected from the organs to the extremities for running away or fighting. So the organs are not getting the blood flow they need whenever those stress chemicals are running through your system. In addition to that, any systems that aren't essential for surviving in the moment, running away, fighting, pretending to be dead, are shut down. That includes digestion and healing. And what's most important and most remarkable to me is that the other effect of these stress hormones in your system is blood drains from the prefrontal cortex of your brain, where you do your cognitive thinking, to the back of your brain for survival. Because when you're being chased by a bear, there's no time to negotiate or, strategize. You have to escape. And that's what the back of the brain is for. So the prefrontal cortex is where we do our, problem solving and noticing opportunities and processing information, comprehending, communication, strategizing. All of those higher levels of thinking are done in the prefrontal cortex. And so this means that whenever you're feeling any negative emotion, you literally can't think straight.
Oh,
you don't have access to the cognitive thinking part of your brain.
First gem, because you can't think straight when you're not getting the energetic and the blood flow to the prefrontal cortex. Is that what you said? I get that?
That's exactly it. Yes. Indeed.
So it's all about survival, and therefore it's totally instinctive. Yes. And yet what we don't understand is the stress response is the same whether or not, well, maybe it'd be a little higher if a bear was running after you, as opposed to some mental, low energy stress.
It actually depends. When people, are really triggered by hurt, betrayal, grief and loss, it can be as high as if you were in immediate physical danger.
Okay. I guess I do get that because, well, here's something I always love to bring up around this idea that is so demonstrates this concept, and that is, I've experienced, and I think so many people have, driving down the highway and thinking everything's going fine, and suddenly I hear a siren, and before I even look to see if I'm speeding and then they're after me, all of these physiological changes have taken place in an instant before cognitively I've even figured out what's going on. My heart is beating faster. There's that startle reflex. I can feel my respiration going up, and you're literally kind of going into the fight or flight, just wondering if the police car's after you. Does that help?
And what's fascinating as well is that it doesn't even have to be something real happening right now, because the brain can't tell the difference between reality and imagination. So that means you just need to think of something you're worried about for that reaction to happen, for that fight, freeze, flight state, for those stress chemicals to be pumped into your system. And that's why we get into these patterns of depression or anxiety or worry about something, because it becomes a vicious cycle. Those connections between neurons, when we have a thought, it's a connection between neurons in the neocortex, and those connections trigger matching chemicals. So when you think of something negative, you pump stress chemicals into your system. When you think of something positive, you pump feel-good chemicals into your system.
Yes, I get that. The problem is, how can you catch it? Yes. And that's the GPS reprogramming, isn't it? Because how can you catch that negative before it already has a physiological impact on you? Because we are so bombarded, Odille, each and every day, each and every hour, with things that affect us negatively, that might not even have anything to do with our own personal lives, but we're bombarded with it. So I know you're going to have some guidance on that.
Definitely. I've got some tips and tools that will help. And so what I wanted to say about the prefrontal cortex, I think of it as you're trying to drive with the handbrake on. So when you're in a negative state, the prefrontal cortex is offline. There's no blood, well, very little blood in that part of the brain, and you're trying to think, and it's like driving with the handbrake on, or trying to. So what you need to do, of course, is release the handbrake. And the way to release the handbrake is very simple. It's not easy. It's not always easy, but it's very, very simple. And that is because wherever we put our focus determines which chemicals the brain and body are producing, whether it's stress chemicals or feel-good chemicals. It is as simple but not easy as switching your focus from whatever it is that triggered you to something you love, something you're grateful for, something you're looking forward to. And the easiest technique that I teach is take a deep breath, close your eyes, and think of your favorite color. And if you don't have a favorite, just pick one you like. And imagine being surrounded by that beautiful color and focus on the feeling of that gorgeous color. And as you do that, the stress chemicals start to come down and your brain starts to produce feel-good chemicals. Now, the fascinating thing is it only takes 60 to 90 seconds to switch from stress chemicals to feel-good chemicals, as long as you're keeping your focus off the negative and on the positive for just that minute and a half. That's all it takes. Now, the reason it's so difficult to do that is because stress chemicals are stronger than feel-good chemicals, because for survival, of course. So we're designed to focus on the tiger, keep our focus on the tiger that's going to attack us rather than the pretty flowers, so that we survive. So that's why it can be so difficult once you're already triggered and you're already in a negative state to be able to pull your focus off that and put it on something you love or something you're grateful for, because your whole system, your brain and body going, don't take your focus off this, you'll die. So that is one of the techniques we teach, is practicing when you're not triggered, practicing choosing your focus deliberately, choosing to think about the color, being surrounded by the color, practicing thinking of someone or something you love and imagining holding them in your arms in a hug. And that starts to produce those chemicals again. So as you imagine or you think about someone you love, you imagine holding them, a pet or a person or even an activity or a place, your brain produces oxytocin, serotonin, and endorphins, and you start to change that chemical state from stress chemicals to feel-good chemicals, and you start to bring your cognitive thinking back online. But like physical exercise, it takes practice and it takes conditioning. So just like you can't just go out and run a marathon without training, this is the same. If you wait until you're triggered to use these little techniques, it's much more difficult because, of course, the stress chemicals are already high. But if you practice every day and practice when you're not triggered, your brain and body start to become conditioned in the same way they would with physical exercise. And then you end up living your life mostly in a state of feeling good as opposed to feeling bad.
And who doesn't want that? You know, so I love this exercise. And immediately as you started talking about it, I was thinking my favorite color is purple. But you know where I went? And I allowed myself to go there. I went to a field of daffodils. Oh my goodness. And I felt the sun bathing down and the warmth of the sun and the daffodils gently waving in the wind. And I would think, as you say, that you can think about things that you love doing. That to me would be just walking, strolling. But then some of the fragrances came to mind as well. So I would imagine the more you can bring the five senses in over that,
Absolutely.
60 to 90 seconds?
Yes.
The more potent the endorphins and oxytocin and all of those feel-good chemicals are going to be. And the faster we're going to flush the negatives out. I have one more question for you around this, however. Okay. And that is, I'm thinking of things like cortisol, which is released under stress. It's a survival hormone as well. And I have been told that one of the best ways to release excess cortisol in the system is actually through respiration, through activity and movement. So is that another way you can do it other than just sometimes you can't go out and take a walk, but isn't that another way to help deal with these stress hormones that, especially if they tend to be what's the word I want to say? Consistently there in the background.
Yes, absolutely. So physical exercise is one of the fastest and most effective ways to change, not just to bring down the stress chemicals, but also to produce endorphins. One of my favorite things that I recommend to people, wherever possible, if you're able to, just go out for a walk and listening to an uplifting audiobook. That just doing that, so you don't have to sort of work out. If you can and you like working out, great, even better. But if not, even just a walk, listening to an uplifting, inspirational, or a funny audiobook. The other things that we recommend: watching comedy, so watching funny YouTube videos, watching uplifting TED Talks, listening to interviews like this on Virginia's channel, listening to those, and playing games, playing with your children or your pets. So anything that will give you that boost of feeling good.
Yeah, and that's really the bottom line, isn't it? When you notice that your energy is less than what you'd want it to be, I sort of put it there and say it doesn't even have to be in a negative state. It just could be kind of a blah state. And
Exactly.
you know that you perform better, you get more done, you have more creative, inspirational ideas when you're in that feel good, uplifted state. That's the time to say to yourself, how can I shift my feelings, and what are some of the techniques? And I love that you just gave us a 90-second technique, which I can't do if I'm going out for a walk. That is just using the mind to reframe the experience and quickly shift the chemicals that are released. Because I don't think people think that much about the fact that their brain is constantly secreting chemicals that provide something for us, whether it's to protect us for fight or flight, or it's to help us be more calm so that we sleep better. But the brain is constantly doing this. We take it all for granted. And yet what you're saying is you can make this shift in 90 seconds. Just become aware, consciously focus on a color you love and anything that you might associate with it. And boom, you're in a new state. The brain body has been adjusted. So I have a feeling we're moving into the second topic. We've already kind of been there, and
Yes.
that is reprogramming your subconscious GPS. So go ahead with that.
Thank you. So that first part, bringing your prefrontal cortex back online. So that means that feeling good is not just about feeling good. It's about everything. It's about being able to think straight. So that is like learning to drive and taking the handbrake off. Now the GPS coordinates. So even if you know how to drive and you're able to move the car forward, if your GPS is set to where you have been before or where you are now, you're not going to end up at your destination, because it'll keep turning you round and heading you back to where the GPS is set to. So when we are born, so when a baby's born, everything we experience is recorded, but not as a camera records. So the subconscious records all our experiences, but not accurately, not as a camera records. It interprets the experiences, gives them meaning, and then files those experiences as part of the structure of who we are and how the world works. So this is why a baby can be born in rural Africa or Hollywood and learn to thrive and survive in that environment automatically, because we're designed that way. So everything we experience, every new experience, is filtered through the data of the previous experiences and then added to it. And so this is why we don't have to constantly think, well, how should I react to that? What does that mean? It's just automatic. And it's also why people can push our buttons without us, even if we're trying to be, trying not to overreact or whatever. It happens, like you were saying, with the hearing the siren. It happens before you've registered it consciously. And that's because, so the subconscious is like this warehouse of so-called evidence that proves who we are and how the world works. When we experience something, the subconscious refers to that evidence and then prompts the brain and body to produce the chemicals that will create the feelings, sensations, and impulses and then the conscious mind reacts accordingly. So changing things like limiting beliefs. So if I wanted to change, which I did, my limiting belief of I'm not good enough, every time I tried to change that belief or even saw proof of it, people told me that I was good enough, or I used affirmations. As I was doing that, my subconscious was referring to my childhood experiences that prove I'm not good enough. There's evidence there. So we want to change that. Now, this is what's so fascinating. The latest in neuroscience has discovered that not only are memories inaccurate, they're also changing every time we recall them. So memories are not stored in a particular place in the brain, and they're not stored as videos or photos or anything like that. They're stored as data in pieces throughout the brain. When we recall a memory, the brain pulls those pieces together like a jigsaw puzzle. And every time that happens, it changes slightly, and then that new version is filed. So anything you remember now is not actually the way it originally happened. It's been affected by everything you've experienced since the last time you recalled it. Now, in addition to that, there are therapies that are being used for PTSD called memory reconsolidation. And what they do is they give the patient a drug, a beta blocker, to keep the stress chemicals to keep the stress chemicals from being produced when they recall the memory. And then they recall the memory and they change what happened just by using the imagination. And they do that until the person is no longer triggered. However, this is very inconsistent. So it works sometimes for some people. And I believe the reason for that is because the childhood memories are still there. So not everybody experiences PTSD. So the same, a group of people can experience the same traumatic event, but only some will get PTSD and others won't. And I believe that that's because the original childhood references are informing how we respond, how we react, how we experience later traumas. So going to that childhood, to those traumatic childhood memories, changing those, using reconsolidation to change those, but we do it without the drugs. We don't need the drugs. Then the event that seemed to cause the PTSD either changes automatically or it's easier to change. So what you're doing is you're changing it in the subconscious. Your conscious mind, you'll still know what originally happened. But like when we watch a movie, the brain and body go into the same state as if the movie is real, but the conscious mind knows it's just a movie. So those GPS coordinates, those childhood trauma, doesn't even have to be traumatic, just negative childhood memories, adverse childhood memories. We change those to the opposite, positive and empowering, and then everything else follows automatically. I'm automatically confident because I know my subconscious now has proof that I'm valuable, that I'm safe. And now instead of prompting my brain and body to produce stress chemicals, it's prompting my brain and body to produce feel-good chemicals. And so then it becomes authentic. You're not pretending to be confident or, changing your actions or what you're wearing or your stance or anything. It's automatic and natural and authentic.
Now, I love this. This is very, very powerful, impactful information. And I like the way you talked about how the subconscious works from this warehouse of evidence, which comes from memories which may not be very accurate because of the weight we give to the experience based on previous experiences, many of which the conscious mind doesn't even remember. And I went through this with clients numerous times. And one of the things that I found, and I'd love to have you comment on this because I have not been doing hypnotherapy for a number of years now, but one of the things that we always found was that they would continue to stumble and have these triggers come up unless you got down to what we call the initial sensitizing experience and changed the original decision that was made. So what have you found today around the neurological response patterns of that initial sensitizing experience?
And I'm sorry, Virginia, you broke up there, so I didn't actually hear that actual question.
Oh, all
Sorry.
right, let's try it again.
You broke up there.
One of the things that I worked with years ago was making sure that if we're going to change that warehouse of evidence, that you have to get to the initial sensitizing experience where the initial misperception, or could have been a powerful true perception, but either way, so that you could change that, reframe it in a way that, change the warehouse of evidence. So are you still working in that area? Do you want to get to that initial experience with people in order to really change the GPS?
Yes, and so what we do is we go for the earliest experience and whatever you can remember, and then what happens is the subconscious will if it can change the ones earlier than that, it'll do it automatically. If it can't, it'll come up and you'll suddenly remember. So I'll give you an example. I had this anxiety, this anxious feeling. And in fact, let me give you the detective work of how to find these things. So it's 3 questions. The first question is, how do I know I have a problem? Or how do I know this problem exists? So for example, one of my examples was my problem was money. I couldn't afford to pay my bills. So that's the problem. That's how I know I have a problem. The second question is, how does that feel? So for me, and will feel different for different people. For me, it felt like they want something of me and I don't have it to give them. I want to give it to them, but I just don't have it. Then the third question is, where in my childhood did I feel that same feeling? And here's a very, very important piece. It may not be the same topic, but it'll be the same feeling. In my case, it was nothing to do with money. It was about expectations. So it was, they want me to be something and I can't be that. And then my subconscious was recreating that using my financial situation and relationships and whatever else. So then you go there and you change that memory. So I'm going to give you an example, a very simple example of a memory I changed. It was so you go back as far as you can remember. And if you can only remember sort of last week, that's okay. Then you do that one. And if another one comes up, you can change that. If not, your subconscious will have done the earlier ones. So this particular memory was, I was 11 years old and I was standing in the doorway to my grandparents' bedroom, and my grandfather was sitting on the bed with a brown leather belt next to him, and I was in trouble. And the memory was just that feeling of frozen and terrified, standing in the doorway looking at the scene. So when I changed it, and I will take you through the process of changing a memory, and you can all follow along because it's really quick to demonstrate. I changed it, and now instead of my grandfather's still sitting on the bed, but next to him on the bed, instead of a brown leather belt, is a pink feather boa, and he picks it up and he's playing with the feather boa and everything. And so now that memory is a funny memory for me. And the difference that made in my adult life is I used to feel really uncomfortable around older men. I always felt incompetent. I felt, just out of sorts. And it was because of those memories of my grandfather. Now, I'm in the company of an older man. My subconscious is referring to that memory. And so now I don't feel any stress or anything. It's just, there's no threat anymore. Now, a key point I want to make as well is my conscious mind still remembers the original memory. That's why I was able to tell you it was a brown leather belt. So I've changed it in my subconscious. So hopefully that helps to clarify that.
Oh, yeah. I mean, let's dig in a little deeper here, because I want people to take from this interview some real solid strategies to shift these kind of things. Because as you say, if you already have a conscious memory of it, we don't even know how far back these triggers might go. But let's start with what you consciously can remember that was disturbing to you in some way, that was terrifying, that was something that threw you off of your equilibrium, so to speak. And how can we make that shift? Because you said it's pretty simple. I like the pink boa's a great idea. How do people come up with these themselves?
Yes. So I want to take you through just a little exercise first, just to show you that what's happening in the brain. So when you think of something, that's neurons firing. Now, when you have a memory, you're firing a specific neural network in your brain. And what we want to do is just change it so you're firing a different pattern. And so when you learn a new phone number, for example, so you've had this phone number, someone asks you for your phone number, it comes automatically because you've learned it. Now, when you learn a new phone number, you get to a point where someone asks you for your phone number and it's the new one that comes to mind straight away. But you consciously know that you used to have another one. So take a deep breath, close your eyes, and I want you to think of your front door. And whatever color your front door is, imagine that it's white, if it's not already white. And now imagine that your front door is blue. And if you can't just imagine it blue, imagine you're taking out a pot of blue paint and painting it blue. So your front door is now blue. Now make it red. Now make it yellow. And put some purple flowers on it. So you could do that presumably because there's no emotional attachment to your front door. So when I say imagine your front door a different color, it's okay to imagine it a different color because there's no emotions attached to it. With memories that have happened to us, especially ones that were emotionally charged, it's the emotions that stop us from changing them. Now, changing a memory is as simple as imagining the event differently and then practicing it to establish that new neural network. As the more you think the same thing over and over, the more those neurons connect, and they call it wired. They become established, and then we know it automatically. That's how we learn intellectually, by repetition. So, and like you would learn a new phone number. So it's as simple as that. But when you try and think, so I was beaten as a child, if I were to try and just think, oh, well, I wasn't beaten, and instead we all went to Disney World, I, of course, will have resistance to that because I've got emotions. So what we do first is bring the emotions down, bring the negative emotions down, and then play the memory differently and practice the new memory. Important points to remember. We can't go back in time and change the original event. And so it's not changing the original event. What we're changing is the way it's held in our own brain. There are no people in our brain. No, those people are not inside us. So these are just neurons connecting. So, people go, oh, well, you can't change that. You can't change them. And we can't change other people, but we can change the way we are representing them in our own minds. So, and there are no pictures in the brain, and no sounds, and no words. It's literally just neurons connecting in different patterns. And so we are just changing the way our own brain connects neurons. Okay, so if you think of a memory that you'd like to change, now, of course, don't pick trauma. Don't pick anything that's very emotionally charged, because you'll need help with that, and especially not for your first time. So pick something minor. So perhaps somebody, cut you off in traffic, or something happened at a supermarket, or whatever, something mild. And so you've got that memory that you're going to change. Now I want you to think of someone or something you love. And preferably something or someone where you don't have any negative emotions. So no missing or longing or regret or guilt or anything like that. Just love. So it could be a pet or an animal that's not your pet, but you think they're cute, or your child as a baby, or a place or activity. And then go to the memory you want to change and notice the negative emotions in that memory. Notice how strong they are from 0 to 10. So 0, I can't feel anything. 10, it's very strong. Then come back to take a deep breath, close your eyes, and think of your favorite color. Imagine being surrounded by that beautiful color. And then think of that person, animal, place or activity that you love, and imagine holding them in your arms in a hug. And notice how lovely that feels. You can start homing in on all the things you love about that subject. And then press pause on that. And let's go back to that memory you want to change. So go into that memory just very, very briefly. We're not going to sit in it. And just notice the negative emotions. How strong are they now? Is it the same? Is it more? Is it less? 0 to 10. And then press pause on that. And let's come back to the color and that subject you love, and holding them in your arms in a hug. And if it's a person or an animal, think about, have they ever done anything funny? Or what's your favorite thing about them? And just really allow yourself to fully focus on everything you love and appreciate about this subject. Very good. Now press pause on that, and let's go back to that memory you want to change. And notice now, are the negative emotions, are they the same? Are they different? Notice how different they are. And so we keep doing this back and forth, until when you go to the negative memory, and you'll notice it's only a couple of seconds that you spend, they don't spend too long, and you go there and you can't feel any negative emotions anymore. Then we change the memory. Now, changing the memory is literally just imagining it differently, but you want to also make it much better. So making it just okay it's okay, but it's not strong enough. And the reason is, as I said earlier, stress chemicals are stronger than feel-good chemicals. So you need a lot more of the feel-good chemicals to have the effect. So for example, me with the leather belt, it was a pink feather boa and he was playing with it, and that became a funny memory. You could also turn bullying, like if you were bullied in school, for example, into a big party, Mardi Gras, add ponies and a fun fair. There's no limit to the special effects and the budget inside your mind. Your subconscious won't question anything. It will believe whatever you give it. So it can't use logic or reason, can't judge something as unrealistic, and can't use timeline. So you could, if your parents were divorced, you can imagine they never got divorced. And your subconscious won't question that. Your conscious mind will, but you have control over your conscious mind. So if you think about scary movies like dinosaur movies, your subconscious doesn't go, hold on a minute, dinosaurs aren't real. So that's just your conscious mind.
Yeah.
And then you practice that new memory until it's...
Well, what I pick up from this, the overall concept that you're sharing, which is to move back and forth, not spend very much time in the initial experience. The sensation I get is as though you're draping it or painting it, or putting a layer over it that is just so much more fulfilling, enjoyable, and giving your body a chance to start to, as you say, you're kind of grooving out a new neuronal pathway around the initial experience by flipping back and forth. And what I find very interesting is your use of color, because it seems as though color is something people are not emotionally attached to in one way or another particularly. And so you can start there and then you go on to being playful. And I think I'm going to add that to what you've just said, is be playful with this.
Yes.
In the process of being playful, you can come up with something that is so much more enjoyable, and therefore energetically everything shifts. So I love it, love it, love it. I want to hear from all of you. What did you take away from this idea or this strategy from Odille? We have one more quick topic we have to get in before the end of the show though, and that's around everyday experiences and challenges that continue to kind of come back and kick us in the butt or kick us off course. What can you say about that, Odille?
All right. So I use an analogy for this that helps. And, this part of this particular topic is based on the last two topics. It all fits in. So when we are going about our day and we come across challenges, immediately the brain and body go into that survival state, and then the conscious mind follows, and so it becomes a vicious circle because we're focused on the negative in order to survive. It's unconscious, of course, we don't do it on purpose. So but wherever we're putting our focus in the moment is determining which chemicals are being produced, and whether our prefrontal cortex, whether our cognitive thinking is online or not. So we want to make sure that we're focusing on things we love and things we appreciate more than the negative. But because that's difficult, an analogy I use is, if you imagine wherever you are now, where you want to get to, whatever you want to achieve is your destination. And on the way, sometimes there are storms and detours. But what we tend to do is we hit a storm along the road and we stop and we pull over and we get out of the car and we spend time in the storm as if that's the end destination, focusing, oh, it's terrible, the rain and the cold and it's dark. Instead, don't get out of the car. Stay in the car and keep moving forward. Recognize this is just a storm along the way. It's okay. I'm just going to keep moving forward. And if the storm, so you may have to go slower because you can't see as clearly. You may have to take a different route because there's a detour. That's okay. It doesn't mean that you're not going to end up at your destination. And if it's particularly scary, so you're feeling particularly triggered, put on an audiobook or the radio or some music, so that whatever will get you through that storm until you're out the other side. And the equivalent of that is watch some comedy, play a game, listen to some uplifting talks or interviews, do some physical exercise, do whatever it will take to get you through that storm or that detour, but knowing that it is just a passing thing. It's not the end destination.
I love this. I love this. And what immediately came to mind is what I did at the beginning of COVID, when there was so much fear being placed out there for all of us, and something that people just didn't know or understand. And you know what I did? I grabbed one of my favorite songs from years ago, and this is going to date me, of course, and it's Neil Diamond's I'm Alive. Nice. And it is one of the most uplifting songs, that I grew up with. And so anytime that I feel that kind of fear and uncertainty come along, which is, as you say, I'm not going to get out of the car anymore. I like that. I love that imagery. Throw on something like I'm Alive and dance to it, because I found that dancing to uplifting music for like 2 or 3 minutes totally shifts your energy. So yeah, these are great tips.
Spot on. Yes.
Well, listen, we could go on and on here. I know I could talk to you for hours. I love this topic. I think it's the foundation of almost everything that we experience in our life. And the sooner you can get a handle on it, the better your life is going to be. And the more you are going to stay in the driver's seat and go where you want to go. And that's really the empowerment breakthrough that we were talking about this whole time, is that you can break through to new levels of control and shift the feelings inside of you so you totally stay in power or empowered. So we've got a gift. We want to make sure everyone has an opportunity to get the gift. So what I'm going to do is bring the link up for people and let them know where to get it. And Odille's going to tell us in just a moment what this gift is all about. But to get it, you all know, you have to go to hmtips.com. In this case, it's hmtips.com/Odille gift. And Odille is spelled Odille gift. So hmtips.com/Odille gift. Odille, go ahead and share with us what this gift is all about and why they want to jump on this right now.
Absolutely, it's my pleasure. So this is a little starter pack. It's a free starter pack that includes a little MP3 audio version of the little exercise that I've just taken you through, the beginner's exercise. So you can listen to that. You can download it onto your phone or your device if you want to, and you can listen to it. It's 2 minutes, and you can listen to it many times to change your state in the moment. So there's that part. There's 3 parts. So there's that. The second part is a little PDF that gives you all the information that we've talked about here, what these GPS coordinates are, how the brain how the subconscious is referring to them, and how to change them, and then how to find those memories and to change them. So it takes you step by step through it, and then finally there's a step-by-step video that you can follow along with that will take you through changing a memory. So you can just keep using this little starter pack over and over to change all the different issues in your life.
Whoa, it's a great gift, you guys. Make sure you go and pick it up now. And again, if you found the information that Odille's been sharing with us today of value, and you know someone else who keeps getting tripped up with these old neuronal pathways that aren't working for them, send them here as well. Make sure that they listen to Odille on this interview, but also send them to the gift. It's Odille's gift to you. And I know she has more great stuff available to you, but start there and then you'll be able to see what else she has to offer. So Odille, at this point, what I would love is for you to sort of wrap this all up in a nice tidy bow and give us, if they take nothing else from this interview today, take this tip home. What would you like to share with them?
Yes, by all means. So the biggest thing to remember is that you have control over wherever you put your focus. So no matter what is going on around you, no matter what is happening to you, we cannot control other people. We can't always control the circumstances, the events, but we can always control where we're putting our focus. We can always choose where we're putting our focus in the moment, even if it's just on being surrounded by my favorite color right now. And that will change your brain chemistry, which will then bring your prefrontal cortex online, which will change everything else.
All right, so that is your empowerment breakthrough strategy. Make sure you go out and use it. Odille, I want to thank you so much for being here with us today. I'll bring you up one last time, and we'll be able to say to everyone, go out, make it a great day because you are in control. And the second you feel you aren't, grab Odille's gift. Listen to what you've said here today, pick up these techniques and strategies and start using them, because as she said, you need to repeat them to reprogram new neuronal pathway and response patterns. Thank you, Odille, so much for being with us today.
You're very welcome. It's my pleasure.
All right, everyone. And we'll see you all on the next Inspirational Business Women show. Bye-bye now. Thanks so much for watching today. Do you know someone who would be a great guest for our show? Or would you like to be a guest on the Inspirational Businesswoman show? Let's shine the spotlight on your expertise. We'll share your story while offering tips, strategies, and advice to our viewers. Expert interviews are a great way to build your reputation as the go-to expert. Go to shinetips.com/IBWS to apply today. Women are waiting for your message, and I can't wait to interview you.